Introducing Movie Stream Guru, the new best way to watch free movies and TV shows. Visit moviestreamguru.com. That's moviestreamguru.com and stream all the costly movies on your watch list for free right now. There's nothing better than free, right, guys? So if you want to watch all of your favorite movies and TV shows, go to moviestreamguru.com, absolutely free.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, it is time for your mailbag. Let's get to your questions, your comments, your concerns. And by the way, if this is the first time you've joined us, welcome. This is the show that's dedicated to the listeners. And if you'd like to participate and throw your 2 cents in, you're more than welcome to do so via email at realwwepodcast@gmail.com, on Instagram at WWE_podcast, on Twitter at wrestling_audio, or you can call us at 518-952-0247, and you have 3 minutes to leave us a voicemail. So let's jump right in and go to our patrons, which, by the way, if you want priority placement in the show and you don't want to have to dig through to find where your question is answered, this is the option for you. Go to Patreon, become a patron for $1 a month. Every show we do is ad-free. Another benefit is to get priority placement in the show. So let's jump right in. And what would this be without Randy? I say that every week, but it's true. Let's jump into Randy the patron, who has this to say. Sorry, got new hours at work, so it's going to be a little late. Well, you know what I mean. Anyway, finally, they're showing off Liv. Do I think she's ready to beat Becky? No. As much as I love her, I think this is a good start. You can build her from there afterwards. My question is, how do you think if Liv were to win, she would do it? How would she do it? A roll-up? Well, I would not put a roll-up past any finish in WWE at this point, and that's a sad thing to say. But the roll-up has been used in instances I never thought they would use it, in high-profile situations, in big matches. To me, the overuse of the roll-up is a sign of cowardice on the part of creative, because it always gives the loser an out. And it also cheapens the win. There are rarely clean finishes in pro wrestling today. How often do we see a clean finish without interference, without somebody using a turnbuckle or using a roll-up, pulling on the tights, something behind the referee's back? Clean finishes are what the frequency of roll-ups and fluke victories used to be. They've now traded places, and it's, to me, damaging the product on a foundational level, the business, the industry as a whole. And that said, a roll-up is absolutely possible. What is also possible is maybe a returning Bayley screwing Becky Lynch and allowing Liv Morgan to get the victory. Again, this is all hypothetical, assuming your logic that Liv were to win here. Now, again, I agree with you that Liv is not ready, but it is something for her to build off of. Maybe she gets screwed. Maybe then they test the waters to see how deep the support for Liv goes based on how terrible she gets screwed. What's the reaction? So I don't think Liv is going to win, but playing this out, yeah, I think a returning Bayley could do it. I know that there's rumors of Bayley returning early. This is a little too early. Maybe down the line, Bayley does indeed screw with Becky. But yes, definitely a roll-up or some kind of weird finish, fluke victory that ends up being somebody who is targeting Becky, and Liv is the benefactor of that. And that is how I think it goes down. If it goes down, I doubt it, but there you go. Next, as much as WWE just let me down with the cuts they keep doing, they still have not cut the one person that would make me stop watching WWE. For me, that person is Alexa Bliss. If they ever do, I can say I'm done for at least a little while. who would it be for you? Honestly, there really isn't anybody they can cut. I mean, I do this as part of my, part of my living now. It's not my full-time job, although it's getting to a point where I could make it my full-time job, which is pretty cool, given, how long it took to get here. And, I'm proud of the show that we've built with all the listeners and great co-hosts. It's certainly not me on my own. But so that's really the reason I would not stop no matter what they do. Simply because this is part of my income. It's part of my life. And so sadly, that is, for better or worse, whether I'm a sellout for money or not, that's just the reality. Now, if I was a decent human being and actually had morals and ethics, and I wasn't just easily bought and paid for, and I was just a simple fan, and I did not have this, what would be that person that I would say, okay, I'm out? Boy, Roman, I guess. I mean, I'm going to shoot right to the top. If they just decided to cut Roman for no reason, that would probably do it for me as a fan. But listen, the more cuts they make, the more headlines WWE makes, which means more clicks, which means more downloads. So actually, selfishly, if you're going to put any kind of positive spin on it for at least somebody, the podcasters and YouTubers, this is our time to make money because more people are Googling what the hell's going on. So I guess in a very selfish and just deranged way, that is the only benefactor of that. So anyway, let's see, Randy, what's your final point here? Next, I really want to see Rhea and Bianca go at it. I believe that they have an NXT and it was great. I could be wrong, but anyway, I think eventually Becky loses to her again, and setting up a Rhea versus Becky. The question is, do you see a Rhea and Becky match happening? That's it. Talk to you soon, Randy. So yes, Rhea and Bianca has to happen. Absolutely. I mentioned this on my Monday Night Raw review, that seeing them in the Fatal 5-Way was the best part of the match. They are so good together. They're both super strong. They have complementary styles, similar styles at that. And seeing them was a joy. Seeing them as the final two competitors in the Women's Royal Rumble this past year was a joy to watch, as I mentioned on the Raw review. And so that's the first part. The second part, Becky and Rhea, yeah, absolutely. Now, this is assuming Liv doesn't take the championship from her, which I think we're all kind of understanding that that's going to be the case, that she's not going to win. Having Rhea and Becky is a shoo-in, especially when you have a tag team division that doesn't exist and you have belts for a division that doesn't exist. The tag team division for the women is a embarrassment. It's an embarrassment right now. So, yes, Rhea and Becky, absolutely, it's on the table. I mean, when? I mean, that's really anybody's guess. Probably later in the year, early next year. Depends. It really depends. I think this will be your clue, Randy. When do Rhea and Nikki drop the women's tag team championships? When do they drop them? Or really, when do they maybe just do what Medusa did on WCW and just dump them in the garbage? I mean, at this point, they're worth more value there than they are just being paraded around as a prop. So, all right, Randy, great way to start off the show. Good questions. Let's get to, let's see here. Who is next? This is Miller. He writes in, as he always does, and says, "How's it, Matt? Miller here from beautiful South Africa. Hope you and all the listeners are doing well. First, I need to apologize to both DJ Kuzmo and also the casual wrestling fan. I meant to say on the Takeover show, casual wrestling fan and the missus, but I said DJ Kuzmo and the missus. Damn you, DJ, you got into my head." Yes, I did notice that, and I knew what you meant, and he knew what you meant. Absolutely, it's not an insult. I mean, he didn't take it as such, but yes, they're both such prominent listeners of the show. I understand how you got it mixed up, but DJ does get in your head. He's so passionate, and I mean this complimentary to him. He's so passionate that he honestly, he gets the information and sees the news quicker than I do. He's telling me about stuff going on that I should already know because I run this show. And so that just tells you how passionate he is. And yeah, so let's move on. I wanted to live up to casual wrestling fans' massive pressure and expectations to do a 3-set voice note so you can hear finally the sexiest accent in the world, which is South African. But for some reason, I can't phone the number. Are there maybe any alternative ways such as WhatsApp voice notes or on Patreon, which could be used? So here's what I'd recommend, Miller. So first of all, I'm not sure how to do that on Patreon. There might be a way to send a voice file. What I'd recommend is this, and goes for anybody. If for some reason the number doesn't work, and by the way, I use Google Voice. That's the app I got the number from. It's Google Voice. So I don't know if that helps you, but in the event that you can't send a voicemail that way with 518-952-0247, what I'd recommend is just sending me an audio file as an attachment in an email. That's when I get a lot of people doing that. So it's not all through Google Voice, which is the phone number I give out, but a lot of them are just email attachments. So that's what I'd recommend. If you want to send it, and I believe there shouldn't be any issue there, just use your phone, create an audio file, just create a voice memo on your phone, and then send us an email with that attachment. It's really a foolproof way that anybody should be able to get in touch with us. And don't worry about the conversion. I can convert it into an MP3 or what file format, whatever. So that's what I recommend. All right. Let's see. Oh, anyway, still couldn't get a chance to watch any shows, but going on holiday in a week for 3 weeks. So I will definitely have some time to watch some WWE. Glad WWE is finally acknowledging Survivor Series. I feel the same as you, Matt. The pay-per-view has lost its significance as being one of the big four. Like I said last week, if they're going to do cross-branded matches and always have the point system of who won, make the winning brand actually get something. Otherwise, what's the damn point other than messing with storylines? Yeah, there is no point, Miller. There is none. None. It is a marketing scheme developed by the team over there in WWE, headed by Vince and approved by Vince, that somebody at some point said this is a great idea. And you know what? At one point, it was fun to see Raw versus SmackDown when it seemed like there was some kind of rivalry between like Shane and Stephanie, or Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman, or Eric Bischoff and Stephanie McMahon. During that era, many years ago, that is when it kind of felt cool. And they actually created a whole video game series off of that. I mean, before it was WWE 2K, it was, well, first it was, what was it? Shut Your Mouth and Here Comes the Pain. Just Bring It. Know Your Role. Kind of bouncing around here. But then it became SmackDown versus Raw. And that took place in 2005. That was the very first SmackDown versus Raw that was released in 2004. Well, actually, no, I think it was 04, late 04. 05 saw SmackDown versus Raw 2006 because they were always a year ahead. And then it went on for many iterations. So SmackDown versus Raw was actually a thing that, you could kind of get into, even though if you dig past the surface, it doesn't make sense. At least on camera, you got invested in the characters, even if you didn't particularly care about the brand or color. So I agree. Like, this has been just an abomination of what Survivor Series used to mean. There are no consequences. So what are we doing here other than bragging rights? What are we doing here? No, nothing. We're not doing anything here. It's just to give away fantasy matchups in exhibition style with no consequences other than bragging rights. So again, going back to the beginning, the answer is there's no tangible benefit. Nobody gets awarded anything. If they actually had something on the line, then I'd be maybe a little bit more invested, but they have nothing. And they can't do championship versus championship to unify everything. So, okay, if I had to choose my favorite brand and I was exclusively on one brand where we are with other sports teams, I would choose SmackDown. But the two eliminations that have been announced, I'm not happy with the men and women's SmackDown teams. Yeah, I guess if I had to choose, SmackDown, I guess would be the one. It's more consistent. It's more consistent with its booking. It's a little cleaner in its presentation. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they don't have an additional hour they have to produce. Secondly, here, you mentioned possible fantasy bookings for Brock. I just thought He was one who ultimately ended Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. Who could be the shocking person maybe to have the crazy story of slaying the Beast as an underdog to boost their career? Like you mentioned, almost maybe as an example. Yeah, look, I mean, Almost and Brock Lesnar is one of those matchups that right now will probably only live in the video game universe. And those of you, by the way, that care about video games, WWE 2K22 is coming out in March, not the normal October. So now they've had over 2 years, like 2.5 years to produce this video game. And let me just tell you this. I'm not trying to go off topic here, but if 2K22 tanks, look out. I mean, that's going to be the final straw. I think WWE would like terminate their contract and move on to another video game publisher. It would be a disaster. I mean, they have to get this right. The pressure on 2K22 is immense. So anyway, but your question, as far as Brock Lesnar, who could be slaying the Beast as an underdog to boost their career? Omos is certainly one. Bobby Lashley's another. I know Bobby Lashley's more of an established star, but I'm trying to look at this realistically. I'm looking at the rosters right now. There's really not a whole lot of individuals that are credible enough to beat Brock Lesnar. There really isn't. I mean, at least ones you're talking about in the context of trying to boost their career off the back of defeating Brock Lesnar. It's a tall task, and Brock Lesnar just lost a match. He's not going to continue to lose match after match when he comes back. I mean, he does have to get some victories here and there. So, interesting question, though. Certainly a one to ponder. And let's see here. Let's continue on. Thanks for keeping me updated. Looking forward to all this and all the shows. But you do have a follow-up here. Let's see. Greatest move in 2 years was the Roman Reigns heel turn. And you hating heel turns. Maybe give Big E a heel turn. Worked so well with Roman as champion, and everyone loved it because Roman was on track for the best run ever as champion. Sorry, Triple H, Stone Cold, Rock, Jericho. May I still say it, Ric Flair. There are a bunch of great champs. Anyways, do you think, as much as you hate heel turns and Big E or New Day, what do you think a heel turn would do for Big E? Okay, well, first of all, let me clear up something. I don't hate heel turns. I just think the frequency of them is alarming right now. There've been a lot of heel turns as of late. A lot. It's just, I'm concerned there's going to be nobody left to fill the babyface spots. At least the big ones. I mean, one of these days, or somebody should just do an analysis of like the roster as a whole and delegate them into heel and babyface camps and see the percentage. And I really do wonder because there have been like 5 or 6 heel turns in a couple of months on the men and women's side, but no babyface turns. So it's just, I don't hate heel turns. In fact, heel turns are one of my most favorite things to see. Because oftentimes WWE can't pull it off and the crowd ends up cheering for them and it gives the opposite effect. So in fact, Miller, I love heel turns. I just don't know what kind of tear they're on right now to turn everybody heel. That's the problem I have is the balance. The equation needs to be balanced with baby faces. And right now there's a heavy dose of heel and not a lot of baby faces to go up against. So that's the concern, especially I shouldn't say maybe even not the numbers, the biggest concern of baby faces, but the star power of baby faces is the biggest problem. So your second part here about Big E turning heel, look, I would love it. I think he could be a heel, but the problem is I don't think they're going to do that because again, there goes another heel turn. And who are they going to turn babyface to balance the equation? You know, Big E was drafted the #1 overall draft pick this past year in the 2021 draft. But do you really think that Big E was drafted #1 because of his body of work or his legendary status or his legendary matches or because it's the name brand value of Big E? No, he was drafted #1 because of the championship he was holding. So really the WWE championship was drafted #1, not Big E. That is, I think indisputable. But look, Big E turning heel, I would argue for the whole entire New Day to turn heel. Arguably, you could say that they are already heel and the fans just continue to cheer for them, so they're babyface by default. But Big E turning heel, I mean, I can't even ponder that because I see zero chance of that happening. They are all in on Big E right now. It seems as if He can't be stopped. Even Drew McIntyre, who beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania last year, fell to one terrible belly flop of a big ending. They're really trying to see what they can get out of Big E as a babyface, and the fans are just sadly going along with this. I really blame the fan. I've said that before. I'll point the finger at the fans just as quickly as I'd pointed at creative, because until the fans truly turn on the shenanigans of New Day and Big E, nothing's going to change. Until they stop pouring money into the merchandise and people stop buying their merchandise, that is really the only way that we can actually have an effect on creative. Stop buying the merchandise and boo them at live events, and ban children from these live events. Women and children, while they may be first on the Titanic, on the lifeboats, they don't get entry here into the arena. Okay, like they are last. They're not even allowed in. So that's what I would say. Keep the women and children at home. And so anyway, of course, you guys cheer for who you want to cheer for, but if I was like some kind of wrestling dictating god, I would make the rule that no women and children allowed at wrestling events. At least maybe let me revise that. They won't be allowed in the arena when you have certain stars out there, and Big E and New Day would certainly be at the top of that list, because they are responsible. They are single-handedly responsible for the continuation of this New Day nonsense. So, all right, before I continue on to my New Day just rants, thank you, Miller, for getting me all hyped up, and hope to hear from you, maybe actually hear from you in a voicemail. Okay, let's get to our next patron here. And, by the way, I'd like to welcome, if I didn't already, Andrew Jewell to our team here on Patreon. So Andrew, cool to see you. Hope you're enjoying everything. If you need anything, buddy, let me know. We have a Discord server. I hope everybody has the link to it. Okay, G-Man, here we go. He writes in and says, "Hey, Matt, I hope they made it on time." Well, yes, he did. "So the 24/7 championship on Raw was probably one of the funniest nights they've had. I'm kind of bummed it wasn't on Hulu, but seeing Corey and Byron rolling up on each other and Corey yells at Byron, 'Saxton, you ruined everything.' I loved those two together on commentary, and I'm not the biggest fan of the 24/7 title, but it's got some funny moments at times. So I'm with you on this. I love seeing the Bloodline and Kevin Owens beating up the New Day. That sure was a lot of fun." Okay, so you switched topics there. I was just reading on like a run-on sentence, but okay, fine. I'm just gonna bear the pain of watching that segment, and maybe you are right. Honestly, even if you are right and it is a funny segment, I'm not of the belief that a comedy relief segment has to be a part of a wrestling show. I know that for some reason it's a box that Vince and Bruce Pritchard and all of the upper management feel that it's a box they need to check for every show. Why? Why do we need to have a comedy segment as some kind of quota every single time that they produce a show? I don't understand this. So even if you're right, it's not something I would view as an asset. Even if I laughed at the segment, I would say, okay, that was funny, but I'm watching a wrestling show. If I want to laugh, I'll watch Family Guy. What other shows do I love? Well, let's not get into it. So, okay, moving on though. You talk here about Kevin Owens, seeing the Bloodline and KO beat up the New Day. That was sure a lot of fun. The only negative part is I didn't have any popcorn, sadly, to enjoy it more. And I also love I agree. It was just a great week. If you hate the New Day, it was a great week for you. I was having a ball. So I also love Sonya Deville and the Naomi feud. I'll be down if they have some kind of match at Survivor Series. As much as I love to see Sonya back in the ring, I think she's doing a hell of a job as an official. Yeah, she's doing good as an official. As good as she can possibly be, but why weren't we ever told how she got in this role? Why was she just I guess, anointed to be a WWE official? How did this happen? And why is she allowed as an official to get into a match and abuse her power with no oversight? Does nobody have anything to say about Naomi and having Sonya abuse her power to get under the skin of Naomi? Is nobody here to do anything about it? Did the board of directors care? I don't know. I mean, Sonya to me is much better suited in the women's division. And honestly, the women's division, as thin as it is, needs another competitor. We don't need another WWE official. If we want to just appoint Adam Pearce as the dual official for both shows, then fine. You know, whatever. But we don't need Sonya in a role that she could be better utilized in an actual in-ring role, I think, especially with a women's division that is thin as it is right now. Okay, let's see. Sasha Banks is pretty much a clear babyface, and I'm probably the only person that likes her as a face better than a heel. Not sure why. I guess I cheered for her for so long. She's my number one, and she soon enough will be our next SmackDown Women's Champion. If it's not Sasha, then who? Okay, yeah. G-Man, you're banned. Lastly, okay, so before I get to your last point, look, Sasha Banks, from a WWE logic role, I think they're playing the sympathy card here of how badly Shotzi beat her down as the default babyface path or reasoning for turning her babyface is, oh wow, what a beatdown by Shotzi. That was unnecessary. How many angles has Sasha been involved in where she did the exact same thing to a babyface? So I know that it was a little bit unwarranted, but why am I supposed to feel sympathy for a heel that has been doing the exact same thing for weeks and really almost more than a year now, over a year and a half? And she did that with Bayley for how many months? And they just tore up SmackDown during the pandemic era. They did an excellent job as that kind of 2-woman power trip. They had all the championships. It was great. But they did that on a weekly basis to babyfaces that didn't deserve it. Now all of a sudden I'm supposed to feel bad for Sasha? Again, I agree that was a heel or a babyface turn. That maybe have been the only one in the last 6 months. But people need to not have the memory of a goldfish and look back and go, wait, well, yeah, this doesn't make sense. Why am I supposed to feel sympathy for this obnoxious, self-absorbed character that has not done anything for me? I mean, it's almost like, remember when, I'm going to try to get this straight in my mind. When we had Bayley and Sasha break up, Sasha attacked Bayley, and we're supposed to feel bad for Bayley because she was not smart enough to see it coming. Or rather, Bayley attacked Sasha, and we were not supposed to see that coming. So we're supposed to feel sympathy for Sasha. I got it mixed up. See, we never got an official turn. Are we not going to, are we not going to address this? Why are we supposed to feel sympathy for a character and get behind a character without them giving us a reason to? Sympathy is not enough, especially for a long-standing heel. But all of this will go on deaf ears, as this is the sign of a true babyface turn. Okay, let's see. Oh, lastly, I'm so happy. I'm so happy for Liv. Unlike Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan, I'm sure she won't win the Raw Women's title, but I say she's a heavy favorite to win the Rumble. She's my pick, and Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan, watch her. 2022 will be Liv's year. I agree. Those that think it's going to happen immediately, no. We need to be put on, as Vince would say, a ride. We do. I want to be put on a ride with Liv. I don't want the immediate gratification. I don't think that they'll maximize the victory in terms of the fan reaction. I want to be put on that kind of Daniel Bryan story with Liv. Okay, I want to give a shout out to Mr. DJ Kuzmo, Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan, for an awesome mailbag episode last week. That was a lot of fun, and I hate it couldn't be a part of it last week. To Amanda, Jen, Ashley, Man, Michael Gross, and to all the WWE podcast universe, and to you, Matt, for this great podcast. This is a lot of fun to listen to. Take care. Well, thank you so much, G-Man. I really appreciate the support that you provide us in so many ways. It is much appreciated. And yes, we have a great team here. We really do. It's not me. It's not just me. Trust me. I want other perspectives. I'm not the smartest guy in the world when it comes to wrestling. I don't pretend to be. And I do want other perspectives, male, female, all of it. So, all right. Thank you, G-Man. Let's get to our a new patron here who writes in for the mailbag. Oh boy, here we go. Let's get to it. And this is from Joshua Hand. Joshua, I'm assuming Josh is okay, so I'll go with that. And yes, you do say Josh, so I'm going with Josh. And I know, Josh, you said that I don't have to read this first part of the podcast if I don't want to, but I'm going to because I think it's interesting for other listeners to hear about a little personal, a little bit of personality into our listeners that are writing in. So here we go. So I've told you before, probably close to a year ago, I'm Josh from the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area, down in Burleson. Hope I pronounced that right. I'm 32 now and grew up watching wrestling from 96 to 2005, roughly. I watched it with some friends and mainly my stepdad. I stopped watching in part because the sexualization with the divas and just not being a fan of that. And yes, I'm straight. I just wanted to see wrestling. Yeah, okay, let me pause there. I couldn't agree more. Now, admittedly, not that people want to hear about me. I just want to validate your experience, as they say, because I'm 36. I'm not that much older than you. And admittedly, when I was watching the Attitude Era and I was, fully immersed into it as a teenage boy, I mean, I didn't hate it on the show, but it wasn't still the reason I watched the show. Now, let's be honest. That doesn't mean I didn't ever purchase a Sable poster. Okay. Or try to get my hands on a Sable Playboy magazine. I mean, 16, 17. Absolutely. I mean, let's be serious. So that said, though, it's still not the reason I watched. So I totally agree with what you're saying, that it just was a complete objectification of the women. And I hate when they even hint at it today, honestly. I think it's unnecessary. It regresses the women's division. It re-objectifies the women. It's just all of the above. I couldn't agree more. So, okay. So anyway, it was also in part to me discovering UFC with Brock, moving into that a little and growing a love for that. I recently returned watching it when my stepdad passed away last April in 2020. Sorry to hear that. And saw that it was free to see the 2-night WrestleMania. And as a way to commemorate and feel connected with my late stepdad, I started back in. Well, that's pretty cool, dude. That's especially when you connect with your stepdad over wrestling. A lot of people do connect with family over wrestling, believe it or not. I mean, I don't have anybody in my family that gives a damn about wrestling. So it's kind of like me and myself, but now I have a younger son. So despite the best efforts of my wife, I will eventually indoctrinate the wrestling into my son's life. It will be wired into his brain, whether he wants to or not. But I that's pretty cool. And that's really nice to hear. So, okay. I recently returned to watching it. You said, as your stepdad passed away, and through the years I had heard about Punk and Reigns. I want to say Punk was just coming in around when I stopped. So, okay, cool. Got it. So you came in just as Punk was getting close to dropping the pipe bomb, or at least, no, if you stopped in 2005, then yeah, you missed the pipe bomb. But pipe bomb happened in 2011? I think it was, in Vegas. So I came back for the silent WrestleMania and saw a good deal of familiar faces, surprisingly. Enjoyed the AJ Taker match, but thought it was weird. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm still not a fan of it. Still. Yeah, I know people just, for whatever reason, hang on to how great that was. I don't think it was. And the Cena stuff, I hated because I hadn't seen him wrestle in ages and was bummed it was like a movie. Yep. Terrible. I still stand by that. I stand by my conviction that the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena was terrible. I know that people look at it as a brilliant piece of art. There were so many layers of intelligence, and you got to dig through and sift through, and well, cool. It was Hulk Hogan being equated to John Cena, and all the rumors and all the backstage fourth wall stuff was incorporated in there. What a great genius piece of art and film. No, It wasn't. It was a mess. It was a trip of acid. It was too much to think about. And if you want to say, oh, you're just a dumb wrestling fan, I don't watch wrestling to think too hard. If people want to sit there and analyze it as part of their thesis, for a college paper, go for it. You want to do a case study on it, go for it. Okay. This to me was, I'm with you. You're already my favorite now, Josh. You're one of my favorite patrons now. Yeah, I gotta say. I'm not trying to alienate anybody else, but that is exactly how I felt. So to fast forward to today, I've been back watching since then because I fell in love again. And it has really great moments, but so many bad too. Yes, that is that's going to always be the case. Okay. There will always be, and I have to come to terms with this too, that every show is not going to be perfect. There is going to be things I can't stand and things I like. Sometimes the equation is balanced to a lot more hatred than love for the product, but we all stick around. Most of us stick around for the long term. So, Josh, here we go. My questions or topics of discussion, since my thumb hit send prematurely. Yeah, you do have 2 messages here. That's fine. I've been watching AEW since about May just to see it. Man, does it feel like the Attitude Era over there. It helps that TV rating it helps that the TV rating allows more, but it's great. I agree. It's not just the TV rating that makes AEW really good. It's the authenticity. It's their culture. It's the unscripted promos. I mean, it goes on and on. I wanted your thoughts on the Kingston and Punk promo from last Friday. Holy cow, was that awesome. I legit asked my buddy if that was real, knowing the answer, but it was so believable. And hell, maybe there is a little real heat between them, but nonetheless, it was awesome. Yeah, look, I don't comment too often on on AEW because we have Mimi who does a great job covering that, and our of course other co-hosts that fill in it from time to time, like Crisis. And this was a segment that I watched, believe it or not, and I'm not just BSing you guys. Like I actually did watch it. I know I say I don't watch AEW, and I normally don't, but this segment, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor as a wrestling fan. Just YouTube it. It's on YouTube. Eddie Kingston and CM Punk. This was to me true pro wrestling. Pro wrestling can still be pro wrestling when you just boil it down to basics. What are those basics? Easy to understand, non-scripted, intense rivalries. Organic chemistry. Now, this promo, guys, was, I think, based in truth. Eddie Kingston knocked it out of the park. I think he actually may have one-upped CM Punk on the mic here, and it made you want to see Full Gear. This was awesome. I mean, Jim Cornette, even, who is a just consistent hypocrite about today's product, loved this segment. And I couldn't agree more with Jim Cornette. Whether you love Jim Cornette or hate him, he's a respected voice in the business, and he gave this nearly a perfect rating, and it was deservingly so. It stole the show. Just do yourself a favor. Go remember why you love wrestling, or maybe introduce yourself to real pro wrestling and watch this segment between Eddie Kingston and CM Punk. Their promo interaction and pull-apart brawl that happened on AEW Rampage on Friday night. Just, I can't say enough about it. It makes you forget where you are. You get lost in the moment. All those good feels. Okay. Also, I don't know any better. My buddy tells me, but I'm loving Reigns. I've only seen him perform as this heel he is now. They tell me he was so bad before. Glad I missed it. Wow. That's so crazy. You didn't see Roman. You missed the whole Roman Reigns babyface experiment. You are one lucky SOB. That is so crazy that you missed it. And I guess you're loving this. I mean, I have to say this though too. Even though most of us did see the Roman Reigns babyface experiment, that was a forced experiment for 6 years, we're now still loving the heel as well, but loving him in a way that is booing him, if that makes sense. Like, fans aren't going there going crazy for Roman Reigns. They're booing him, generally. And that's out of a sign of respect for how great he's doing. So we're loving him maybe in a different way you are. But that's so crazy you missed the whole babyface Roman Reigns. I would say go back and check it out, but I don't want to skew your view, your perception of Reigns by doing that. Oh man, you missed so many moments. So many. Okay, who do you think will ultimately beat Roman? Drew? This reminds me of some of the Randy runs and Triple H runs. Man, I hated those guys growing up. Now I live Orton because he's so damn good, or I love Orton, he's so damn good, especially after seeing Broken Skull Sessions. Have really grown to love him, and he seems like a cool dude. Seth, too. Yeah, Orton on Broken Skull Sessions was outstanding. You learned a lot about Randy on Broken Skull Sessions. It was, I think, a couple months ago when it aired. Go check that out, by the way. There's your plug, WWE. But who do I ultimately think will beat Roman? Honestly, I don't even know if it's somebody on the roster right now. It could be The Rock. It could be. And that rumored matchup is supposed to take place next year in Hollywood at WrestleMania 39. So we potentially have like 18 months, 17 months. It's a long time. And I don't think that the fans would sit well with another 17 months, even as great as this is with Roman Reigns as champion. I would try it, but I doubt it. They would have the patience for it. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, who do I think could be? Maybe Seth Rollins in some kind of interpromotional match if Seth is built up correctly. Bobby Lashley, maybe. Again, I'm looking at the roster as it stands currently. It doesn't lend it. I mean, Drew is the obvious pick. Yes, Drew McIntyre is the obvious pick to beat Roman Reigns. Whoever it is, they have to have full faith in that person, because whoever beats Reigns, WWE will be sending the message to fans that this is our guy. So I mean, if you were going to pick today, I would say Drew McIntyre, right? I mean, just as you said, but there are some candidates, but nobody that's even halfway believable right now. Any on the SmackDown side, especially. So, all right, let's continue here. One last thing. My friend had been giving me crap for this whole last year and a half because of watching WWE until I talked to him about why I watch it and what it does for me. All that to say, he gave it a shot and he's loving it. It's cool to see a new fan and how differently they look at it as opposed to us, even me, vets that just want better and long for the old days. Like I said, I know you don't have the time, but man, oh man, is AEW definitely for us old kids. They're making it cool again. For the sake of me being able to talk wrestling forever, I'll stop there now. Have a good one, Matt. Until next time, Josh. Hope I wasn't too late with the mailbag. Been a busy week. Yeah. No, you're not too late. And it's cool. You give your profession here. Cool deal. And I will say I'm not against AEW at all. I love AEW. I mean, everybody hears it every week, but it's simply just a lack of time. That's all it is. I've got 2 little ones at home. It's home projects and just life, man. It's so hard for me to find time, which is why I've got a great team to cover that for me. So it's absolutely not that I'm against AEW. It's just the good old time restriction is really all it is. And that's awesome. You brought in a new fan. I don't hear that too often. I really don't. You brought in somebody totally new. That is, I really don't know if I've heard anybody tell me that. So that's a really cool deal. Now I've had people write into the show saying that they've returned to wrestling because of our podcast and that we help them stay up to date. But to bring in somebody totally new, that's an awesome deal, dude. So Josh, thank you for the contributions. Thank you for the support on Patreon. Hope you enjoyed everything ad free. And I'm looking forward to hopefully your next email for next week. All right. Well, that concludes the Patreon portion of our mailbag as far as the emails go. But let's dive in now into the regular mailbag here in terms of emails, and then we'll jump to voicemails. And let's go to Joe Owen, and he writes in and says, Smokin' Joe from the UK. First of all, it was a great takeover by the one's Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan. So again, praise, Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan. If you guys are listening to this, I've got nothing but positive You guys are the stars of the mailbag. Let me just say that. Just an idea. As NXT takes over, NXT takeover usually happens on a WWE pay-per-view weekend. Maybe the mailbag takeover with the casual wrestling fan should happen every pay-per-view week. Also, and not only is it a fun show, but it would give you a break on a big week of audio with her predictions, shows, etc. And just for fun, what's your Mount Rushmore of WWE catchphrases? Smoking Joe for the UK. Wow. Okay. I like that idea. It's not up to me, though. It's up to none other than Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan. So that decision would lie on them. I'm all for it. Pay-per-view weeks, as it will be in just a couple weeks here with Survivor Series. Yeah, they suck up all my free time. Gone. I mean, I go from my big boy job to being dad to zero free time before bed, and I get to bed at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. some nights. Actual pay-per-view nights, sometimes it's like after 2 a.m. and I have to get up at like 5:30. It's brutal. So I like that. Anybody that can, I can delegate my work to. Yeah, definitely. And certainly the quality that Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan bring to this show, I'm all for it. It's just not up to me. It's absolutely their decision. So yeah, as far as my Mount Rushmore of WWE catchphrases, man, okay. Since you're going to put me on the spot and there's 4 spots, number one is because Stone Cold said so. I'm going to get about as boring as it gets here. If you smell what the Rock is cooking is also on there. And let's see here. Rest in peace, Undertaker. And let's see here. I would say I was going to go Hulk Hogan, what you going to do? But I didn't grow up during that era. I wasn't a Hulk Hogan fan growing up. That wasn't a thing for me. I didn't really watch Hogan wrestle until he came to WWE as part of the NWO in 2002. I knew who he was in WCW. I knew who he was as a person and a personality, and he was bigger than life. I knew all that. But I never watched him actually perform until 2002 in the WWE version of the NWO. Take that for what it's worth. But so those are the 3. As far as the 4th goes, I'm going to have to say, maybe Triple H. I'm that damn good. I mean, I have not sat down to really think about this. I'm sure there are some other really, really, really good ones. Maybe Suck It by DX. Or I got two words for you. I mean, I lived and died by that as a 13, 14-year-old. Yeah. Gets you in trouble at school. So, Joe, good questions. Thanks for the email. Let's continue on. And let's see. Go to Jim from Pennsylvania. He writes in and says, I've been listening to your podcast for over a year now, and I enjoy it. I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, I think the WWE should change the Money in the Bank pay-per-view to having ladder matches for all titles and for both shows. Okay. So let me just make sure I'm clarifying this. Of course, I'm talking to dead air because I'm talking to myself. But you think that WWE should change the Money in the Bank pay-per-view to having ladder matches for all the titles and for both shows. So I'm not sure what you mean by both. I think you mean Raw and SmackDown because it's a joint pay-per-view, and there are no brand exclusive pay-per-views. That was a thing at one point. Right now, everything is a joint pay-per-view. So you're saying every championship will be a ladder match, regardless of where the championship lies on SmackDown or Raw, is what you're saying. I'm assuming that. So, yes. So, but I also, it's hard if you're not actually on the show for me to ask this. So I'm asking this, of course, hypothetically. Are you proposing that they get rid of the Money in the Bank briefcase? If you're going to have all championships be ladder matches, are you saying we should eliminate the Money in the Bank briefcase, or is that also a ladder match? I don't know. It's hard for me to answer a question I don't know the premise to. But question 2: do you think that John Cena has a better chance at winning number 17 or becoming a Grand Slam champion, or both? Thanks. Keep up the good work. I think he has a better chance of winning number 17. The reason is, especially with the latest drama going on with Ric Flair, at least with the whole fallout from Dark Side of the Ring, the plane ride from hell, all of the stories we heard about Rick on the plane and all the really just awful things he did, which a lot of people believe, and there were a lot of witnesses on the plane, so I don't have any reason to believe somebody was making that up. That is going to take a while to go away. Maybe it never will, especially in today's cancel culture and all that stuff, which is, again, I'm not bringing politics in it. It's just the reality. It has now bled itself into wrestling. But I think that said, WWE feels less inclined to protect the 17 championships, and they feel more inclined to, or at least encouraged and less skeptical about breaking that 17th championship for John Cena. That's my answer. And I think it will happen. I think John Cena will return closer to WrestleMania season, have a couple of month run into WrestleMania, and maybe even capture the championship at WrestleMania. It's very possible. People, I think, are forgetting that John Cena could become champion. He's not just here for one-off or a one-off and gone. I think he could have a substantial run, meaning a couple of months. So yes, a championship is absolutely possible for John Cena, and I think that's the more likely scenario. Thank you so much, Jim from Pennsylvania. I appreciate it, and thank you for the compliments, and please write us back next week. All right, let's see here. We're going to go with, this is Kyle from New York. This is, wait, no. I take that back. Kevin from New York. So here, this is going to be interesting. So here we go. Hi, everyone. You may think this is Kyle from New York, but Kyle from New York couldn't make it to this week's mailbag. Don't worry, though. He'll be back next week. This is Kyle's alter ego, the debuting new resident heel, Kevin from New York. Now, let me talk quick so I can leave this horrible show. Oh, here we go. First off, I've been listening to this podcast for as long as Kyle. Whoever hasn't probably... hold on. Let me reread this. I think Kyle Kevin, you may have a bit of a typo here, but let me read it as you wrote it. If this makes sense or not, I don't know. Whoever hasn't probably aren't true fans like I am. I'm a huge fan of this podcast. Just kidding. Kevin and I have better things to do. Anyway, I challenge Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan and DJ to a tag team match with me and resident heel Owen if he's up for it. All right. Well, a challenge has been laid out. A lot of challenges on this show. A lot of alter egos showing up. A lot of personalities. A lot of gimmicks showing up on this show. Again, I am volunteering to referee. I have yet to get the call to referee. I hear a lot of challenges. I have yet to see a lot of action. So let's continue, though. Anyway, my question to you, Matt, is how do you think Ray and Dominic are going to break up? And when? Because they've been teasing this for longer than what the amount of time you've ranted about my favorite wrestler, The Miz, who is, I can't even say it, but you know the word. Even though my opinion matters on this podcast, I'm just curious to see what you think. Let me know your thoughts. Well, let me just say this, Kevin. I don't know if they're ever going to do it. I don't know if they're ever going to do it because they teased it for a while, like you said. And I thought they were going down that road, and all of a sudden they're magically back together like nothing happened. And it's Christmas morning, and they're, hugging and kissing, and everything's great between, son and pops, because that's how they refer to each other. They don't use their, actual given names. But I don't know if they're going to. Now, if they do, I'm going to go down the road of assuming they do. I think that it's going to be towards WrestleMania. To me, that's a story that they could play out in a WrestleMania match. It's a match that is really the only fantasy match left for Rey Mysterio. And I think it would help get Dominic over. I think he could be a great heel. I've already talked about all the content they could pull from to create this program. It's right there for the taking. So I think if it's going to happen, it does happen maybe late in the year, Rumble time. Maybe even a little bit after that, where things boil over and spill over into he shoves his dad down, and I've had enough of you, and you're overbearing, and you tried to, basically put me up for auction, or, when I was just a kid, and all this psychological damage I've gone through. There's really just everything they could pull from a wealth of things. So, all that said, I don't think it'll happen, but if they do, it'll probably be WrestleMania time. Maybe that's why they put it on pause, because they don't have enough content to build it to WrestleMania, and they think, hey, we've got a WrestleMania match here, let's wait. That's possible. Okay, second, When do you think we'll see Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins again? How do you think this will be set up? I really want to see it. Hopefully when it does happen, I can be there live because my best friend, Happy Corbin, will lend me some money. He's rich, unlike any of you people. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Okay, well, I feel like I hear a chorus of boos. Maybe I should just like insert boos into the show. Would that make it more entertaining? But Seth Rollins and Roman, I think it's going to be a while. I think it's going to be a while because they're on separate shows. They're both top heels. And you can't do a heel versus heel matchup. Babyface has been done, and it's been done successfully in the past. Top heel versus top heel is difficult to do to get the fans invested. So I think it's going to be a long time, meaning like 6 to 12, probably until the next draft. Unless something cataclysmic happens, there's a major trade, they run across each other at WrestleMania, some kind of hinting interaction. Like, I think it's going to be quite a while because right now you don't want to turn Roman Reigns babyface yet. You certainly don't want to turn Seth Rollins babyface. Seth Rollins is just starting to come into his own as a heel and feel natural, and he's got everything starting to click. It seems like he's found his identity after going through, as I phrased it, I think it was last night or the night before in the What If show. He's got an identity, or he did have an identity crisis. The identity crisis has now passed, and it feels like Seth knows what he is and who he is. So that said, you don't want to go and flip the table on him again and have him be all of a sudden this fan favorite, which never worked for Seth, like organically never worked for Seth. The only time I mentioned that he got the fan support was after the injury before WrestleMania. I think he got injured at a house show in Ireland or something against Sheamus, and he injured his knee, blew his knee out. And then he returned at Extreme Rules, which took place in midsummer of that year. And the crowd was all for him. That was the only time. You know, even during the Brock Lesnar build up to WrestleMania, 4 or 5 years ago, not even that long ago, 4 years ago, it didn't really work. So Seth as a babyface never, ever worked. Roman, when he becomes a babyface, it will work because the fans have had time to really hate him and see the other side of him they've been asking for. But Seth just has that sniveling smile. He's got the voice that's like nails on a chalkboard. His laugh is obnoxious. Roman has a great smile. He's got a soft voice. He's a good-looking dude. I mean, he's going to be a mega baby face. So to answer your question, long story short, it's going to be a while. Lastly, I want to make this very clear. I'm not Kyle. I'm Kevin. That loser Kyle can stick to voicemails. I will stick to this email I stole because you people don't deserve to hear my voice. Anyway, I know what you said. The mailbag was a little low on emails this week because of all the cowards who didn't want to write in. So hopefully this helped make it longer. That's it for now. I'll talk to you all again next week or not, whatever I want to do because I have better things to do. So goodbye, everyone, and have a bad day. Unsincerely, Kevin from New York. Well, Kevin, you have certainly turned heel, and you and Owen will make a great team. I'll say that. Okay, let's move into our final emails for the evening, and then I promise we have voicemails. And yes, we were low on voicemails and emails, but boy, did that change over the last day. You guys heeded the message and took to it. Okay, let's get to our next email here from Dennis. And Dennis writes into the show, and he says, "Hey, Matt, I sent this email in last week, and somehow it got sent back to me." Oh, all right. Well, sorry about that. I hope nothing's wrong with your email, but maybe it was possibly just a typo on my end, or rather on the sending address to me. Anyway, I have a question about Amanda's wrestling news brief about Charlotte Flair trying to get out of her WWE contract and media. Can you explain what she's saying about Flair? Could we see Charlotte go to AEW? I have some to... Okay, so first things first. So there is just... Right now, there's a lot of rumor and innuendo going around about Charlotte. That she's unhappy. That she's causing issues backstage. There's even theories out there that she's purposefully trying to be a bit of a troublemaker backstage to have WWE release her from her contract so that she can do what she wants to do, maybe even go to AEW. I mean, don't forget, her fiance, Andrade, is in AEW. So she certainly has a pull there to be able to go in, and I think she'd be an excellent addition. She'd be an excellent addition to any roster, for God's sakes. I mean, Charlotte in AEW would be a lot of fun. Unhinged, unscripted. It would be a blast to see Charlotte in AEW. And of course, I'm sure she would love it with Andrade there. And you know, if you look at Charlotte's social media, everything is just lovey-dovey with Andrade. I mean, they can't keep each other's hands off each other. And it's almost sickening. It's almost kind of like, can you just stop with the pictures with you two? It's a little stomach churning, but that is the theory going around. And WWE, with the whole backstage incident that happened with Becky Lynch a couple of weeks ago, cut all of her media appearances for that coming week because the media appearances were likely going to be asking, all the media organizations were going to have to ask Charlotte what's going on with you and Becky. And they didn't want to put her in that position to have to answer. They, as a company, didn't want to look bad with Charlotte talking about the backstage real tension with her and the other performers. You don't want to go that road. So I understand why WWE cut her media appearances. Okay. I have something to say about his son and Goldberg in his last match with Rey Mysterio's son. Sorry, I can't remember Rey's son. Dominic is what you're looking for. I'm going to say it for you, Matt. Goldberg, we all don't want to see you in a last match. What do you think? Yes, I agree, Dennis. I have no interest in seeing Goldberg. I mean, a good guy, good human being, just doesn't do it for me. So I have something to think about with the WWE's the Big E finisher, which I never saw, but I would agree with you, Matt. A big shout out to Michael Ritter, who does that Friday Night SmackDown review. I just want to say you and him and all of us here at the WWE Podcast do a great job keeping you up to date on everything WWE. Yes. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. You know, we try here the news segment with Amanda that she puts out on a semi-regular basis. Whenever there's news to share is really when she records. I'm glad that we can help you, and I know a lot of people listen to us at work, so that's kind of cool too. Is there an email for Michael Ritter to get a hold of him and let him know how I feel? Well, you're letting him know how you feel right now. I don't know if he's comfortable with me sharing his email, but that said, I can share his, if you don't mind, his Twitter. If you want to contact him on Twitter, his Twitter handle is at Michael5, the number 5, not spelled out 5, Ritter. So Michael, number 5, Ritter. So go contact him there on Twitter. I'm sure he would love to hear your feedback. All right, let's continue on. I think, Dennis, you have another email here. Quick one here. You just said you don't use Twitter, just email. Also, well, then I guess it negates my helping you out, giving you his Twitter. That said, hold on. He might have, I believe Michael Ritter does have an Instagram, but let me find out. Yeah, he does. He has an Instagram account. It's Michael Ritter 5. Michael Ritter, and then just the number 5. So if you don't have Twitter, there's your alternative. Outside of that, I think he does accept Morse code and smoke signals, carrier pigeons, that kind of stuff, all the latest technology. So let's continue here. And do you get through all the emails and voicemails? Yes, I'm answering your questions from your email. If I have a question or comment for you, how do I contact you? The email you're using right now, Dennis, is perfect. So you can email me at any time. As long as it's by like 9 p.m. on Wednesday night Eastern Standard Time, I'll be able to get to your emails. And I do get through all of them. I really do make an effort, even if it's like a 2-hour show. This one's kind of shaping up to be that way. So thank you, Dennis. And let's see here. I think, I say, that could be it for the email portion of the show. But wait. It looks like we have an Instagram section here from Owen. And now I got to say, it would not be the mailbag without Owen. So let's get to it on Instagram here. It's your resident heel back with your weekly dosage of realism and a glimpse at what pure greatness looks like. Yes, today I'm sending my message in via Instagram. Very exciting. My laptop is charging and I don't want to miss the cutoff. So I thought I'd send my message in through today. Anyone who wants to speak with me about anything wrestling can message me on here, which, by the way, I'm assuming you don't care if I share your Instagram. It's Owen South 7. So, first of all, I have to mention last week, Sir Casual Wrestling Fan and his wife did a brilliant job of adding enthusiasm needed for my emails. Matt, I know you want to be like your twin, Adam Pearce, but you can put some emotion into reading the emails. I found it. Okay, well, first of all, emotion I don't just give away. It has to be earned. I have to feel it. We don't manufacture anything here on the show. And Adam Pearce may have the exact haircut I do. That's very true. That's a true story. But I can tell you, Adam Pearce is no creator and host of this show. Okay? Adam Pearce, I don't think could hold a candle on this show. Yeah, that was a shot at Adam Pearce. How about that? Okay. Anyway, I'm just trying to rile people up. Yeah, look, I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan have a certain kind of charisma to them. I'm not them. They're not me. I bring kind of sometimes dry humor. I bring just honesty, sometimes monotone. A lot of people fall asleep to my voice. Maybe I should just start randomly yelling at an unknown timestamp. I wonder how that would go, right? Like just out of nowhere, 28 minutes in and 18 seconds, I just scream, wake people up. Say, stop falling asleep. Pay attention to my show. Okay, yeah, no, they definitely add enthusiasm, and his voice is just so, it just makes you pay attention, doesn't it? Something about it, no doubt. Anyway, all right, thanks for the insult. Let's continue on. I found it pretty cool that the other UK mailbag contributor is called Owen. I'm glad it is your surname to constantly remind you that you will never be on my level, ever. I'm really looking forward to a potential Seth Rollins championship. Seth is a man I can relate to, and he idolizes me, so to see him at the top is pretty exciting. It's a pretty exciting thought. Big shout out to Anthony. Oh, big shout out to Anthony DeMarco and yourself for a What If show. It's my personal favorite. And finally, I will give my answers to a few of Sir Casual Wrestling Fan's questions of the top 5, as far as the Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan's question of the award show. So for the top 5 men's, here's Owens' top 5. Bobby Lashley, Darby Allin, Seth Rollins, Kenny Omega, and Roman Reigns. Match of the year, the Lucha Brothers versus the Young... I think you mean, is it the Lucha Brothers or Lucha? Boy, I got to get up to AEW standards here. Versus the Young Bucks in a steel cage match. That's all for today. I'm writing this at a late time and I'm not reading it over again, so I'm sure there will be some grammar errors that you will blindly stumble through. So I'll enjoy your suffering. Yeah, well, that did happen. So, Owen, proofread your stuff, brother. Proofread your stuff. There's a lot of people that send in grammatical issues, and I just kind of cover because reading the actual grammatical errors sometimes would not be a good show. I have to say that. It would not be a good show. All right, let's get to, and I apologize for DJ for this being a little late. As a patron, you should be at the front of the show. I somehow deleted Mr. DJ's email, and I had to reach out and say, hey, I know you sent something, and he did. So this is totally my bad. But DJ he sent in an email, so let's get to that, and then we'll, of course, start off with his voicemail. So he's going to get back-to-back coverage here with our very first voicemail, and also let's get through the email here. So let's see what he's got to say. And I know, DJ, you normally have your music. I also somehow misplaced that. So it's not been a good week for me technologically. So let's all imagine in the DJ booth with his entrance music. Here we go. All right. He says, hey, Matt and WWE AEW podcast fam. This is DJ Kuzmo back at it again on your Mailbag show. Applause to the greatest Mailbag show in all wrestling podcast entertainment. Welcome to you, to the Mailbag, first-timers, long-timers, and weekly contributors. Here we go. Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan Takeover Crew. Last week's Mailbag episode was really good and highly entertaining. Yeah, we have differences of opinions in Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz, and it's okay. Nothing personal. I just see it as since being drafted to Raw, I haven't seen anything promising that creative have in store for Apollo, yet in a sea full of heels. Speaking of heels and heel turns, catch my voice rant on yet again more heel turns, but I digress. Yeah, first of all, DJ, agreed. I mean, everyone loves Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan. They're highly entertaining, more entertaining than I am. And I don't mean that as a sarcastic tone at all. But Apollo Crews, And what happened with him and Damian Priest? Did we see Damian Priest this week on Raw? Am I missing something? And maybe it wasn't on Hulu and I missed it. But I did not see Damian Priest continue his program with Apollo. So we'll see what happens there. I agree with you, Matt. I think someone from creative, or maybe Bruce Pritchard himself, has told Vince that there is a pay-per-view this month called Survivor Series. You know, one of the big four pay-per-views where we got a brand competition with men's and women's teams and a champion versus champion. There's a rumor out there that Vince forgets what happened on the previous episode of Raw and who was on the show. Hence, the multiple rinse and repeat storylines and 50-50 booking. I mean, look, Father Time is coming for Vince, whether he wants to admit it or not. I know he defeated God at one point in 2006, I think it was. That was a long time ago. God has not forgotten. So, and I'm not joking about that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, he literally beat Shawn Michaels and God in a tag team match. I'm not kidding. Okay. Releases yet again. Keith Lee gone. Nia Jax gone. Cross gone. Scarlett gone. Tegan Nox. Ember Moon. Frankie Monet. Eva Marie. And a host of others. Never in all my years of watching pro wrestling, especially WWE, would I have witnessed so many releases in 1 year. With all these releases occurring so frequently, the rosters are just getting depleted to the point that the babyface to heel ratio has become uneven, where there are more heels than babyfaces. Also, with that, there's a huge void for the main event top tier babyfaces, and the future looks very uncertain when after the likes of Roman, Drew, Seth, Becky, Charlotte, and maybe Bianca, there really isn't anyone that could step up to the prominent face of the WWE. Hence the reason for going back to the part-timers like Brock, Edge, Goldberg, Cena to main event big matches at pay-per-views. I wish every wrestler that got released the very best. It's hard to be put out of work during the holidays, but I'm optimistic that things will get better for most of these released wrestlers because they are no longer under the control of the machine known as the WWE. Yeah, it's tough. Regardless of what you think about them, they are human beings that lost their jobs. And they may have been making a whole bunch of money, but don't forget what that may be proportional to what you and I make. And it's all about what you save, not what you spend. So don't forget that. Maybe their lifestyle can no longer be supported by the lack of their paycheck now. I mean, so they are humans, and I feel for them too. I do. I really do. So it's a lot. I mean, someone needs to compile a list of everyone that has been released over the last year. It's got to be just striking. I mean, it feels like every couple of months we're hearing about the massive releases. This is absurd, and I know that they're claiming it's budget cuts. While that may be true, it's not the whole truth. Like, of course, cutting people is always a part of budget cuts. So they're not lying, and that's what they would say. By definition, when you cut a talent, you are budget cutting, right? Like, you are saving money on your budget. But they're not giving us the whole truth. They're giving us a sliver of it. Of course, they're not going to get into details. They're never going to say, oh, yeah, Keith Lee was released because X, Y, and Z, and here's everything he did. They're just going to go with the generic budget cuts because it's not a lie. It's just, like 1% of the truth. So, okay, sidebar stuff here. Have you noticed that both Xavier and Big E have their own theme music, while Kofi still comes out to It's a New Day? So WWE Creative, here's a memo. Repackage Kofi as someone else with a different theme music and gimmick to get rid of the poison that is the New Day. Well, yeah. I mean, Kofi, I think, is the poison of the New Day. If I was going to break it down to one person, he is the worst part of the New Day. I mean, he is just insufferable on camera. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to see just a heel turn. Somebody turn heel, for God's sakes. I know I've been complaining about the number of heel turns. This is one I wouldn't care about. I just don't. I got to say, I know, Matt, you don't follow up on NXT 2.0, but Mandy Rose going from blonde to brunette as a heel champion is really impressing me. I never knew that Mandy could channel such a dark side to her character, while on the other hand, for her former tag team partner, Dana Brooke, who has not done anything substantial since the split from Mandy Rose, has not even won a singles match in probably 6 or 9 months. Yeah, like I said earlier, or I actually say later in the show, because I'm recording this. DJ, I'm recording your email actually backwards. So later on in the show, I actually do talk about Mandy Rose. Somebody else brought them up, I think, in a voicemail. Mandy Rose, and you'll hear it again in my show in like about 45 minutes, is predictably doing better on NXT. And they should do, like, when they come to the main roster, the effect should be what people are having when they go to NXT, back from the main roster to NXT. It's amazing, yes. And it's to me, the main roster is just toxic. And it shows that they don't know how to manage talent as well as NXT. So, okay, let's see here. I don't know why some wrestlers that are not getting booked for matches on the main roster due to the creative not having anything for them get traded to NXT to hone their wrestling skills and tweak their wrestling persona and then maybe go back to the main roster. It sure helped Finn last year rebuild his character, while in NXT he eventually moved back to the main roster. And Mandy Rose is improving on week to week with her new character and the women's faction she's got on NXT. It's pretty impressive. That's all for this segment. Peace. Another voicemail. Yes. So I'm going to get to your voicemail in just a second. You're going to be the very first voicemail. But before we get to your voicemail, DJ, yes, I mean, I agree with the whole analogy of Finn as an example. He's a great example of that. What happened with him going to NXT? I think Kevin Owens would have been absolutely a benefactor of going back to NXT too, and they kept him on the main roster and floundered and here and there, and he's on TV, he's off TV, he main events, he's forgotten, he does the KO show, he goes away. There's no consistency at all. And like I said, I'm going to say later in the show, I'd rather be on NXT. If I was on NXT, I would not want to come to the main roster. I would not want to have anything to do with the main roster because there are too many examples of stars that are established in NXT that come to the main roster and Vince doesn't know what to do with them, and they just sit there, they rot away, or he changes the character for no reason. Karrion Kross makes no sense what they did with him. I would not want anything to do with the main roster. Look what Keith Lee. Keith Lee was like hot at NXT, having excellent matches, excellent on the microphone. He comes up to WWE's main roster and doesn't know what the hell they don't know what to do with him. He's on TV, he's off TV, and now boom, he's released. I would not want anything to do with the main roster if I'm on NXT. The odds are too great that they screw me up or they fire me. I'd want nothing to do with it. There is way more freedom, it seems like, on NXT, and they seem to have a better handle on their talent. So, all right, DJ, thanks for the email. And let's not waste any more time. It's time to get to those all-important voicemails, starting off, of course, with the DJ. Here we go.
Hello, WWE Podcast World. This is none other than DJ Kuzmo, back at it again on your Mailbag show. I'm recording live once again on a Tuesday evening. And folks, we are on the road to Survivor Series after the many days and weeks where we're trying to figure out when are these teams going to be released, when is the card going to be released, and we finally got our releases of who's going to be on the card, our champion versus champion, our team versus team, and of course the glorified brand supremacy crap that creative likes to shove down our throat every single year in this Survivor Series pay-per-view. So I'm not expecting it to be an awesome pay-per-view. It should be a solid pay-per-view of some good wrestling matches, but we finally got what we all been waiting for in this Survivor Series, aka exhibition, aka all-star game type of pay-per-view. Now, as we continue on the mailbag, I want to talk about what's going on, especially like I mentioned last week with the heel turns. Oh my goodness, and now again with more heel turns, a double heel turn. We just saw last night on Monday Night Raw. Not only did we get Kevin Owens turning on, attacking Big E, but we got Doudrop. I mean, are you kidding me? Doudrop? Piper Nivens, aka Piper Nivens, attacking Bianca Belair. Wait a minute. I thought that Doudrop was a baby face aligned with Eva Marie, and Eva Marie made her life a living hell. Now, of course, Eva Marie is not here anymore. She's released. But again, I don't get the concept of why the hell would you book Doudrop in this position as a heel, and I would say not a believable heel, because I don't know what kind of promos she could put out. I don't even understand the whole character development with this, but I understand, of course, Bianca Belair has to be away from the title because Becky Lynch did tell her it's time to go to the back of the line. But come on, this again with the heel turns, and of course Kevin Owens. It's a long gone conclusion that Kevin is going to be, getting ready to go to AEW. So why not turn him heel? But still, where is the explanation? Of course, we had Shotzi Blackheart turning heel on SmackDown, and all the other heel turns that I mentioned last week. Where is the explanation? Where is the storyline? I don't want to continue to beat a dead horse about all of these heel turns, which doesn't make any sense. But I want to talk about these recent WWE releases. Now, I want to put this in a positive perspective. I know we're all pissed off, we're all shocked, we're all depressed about this, but I want to put this in a positive perspective, and I want to give a quick shout out to, of course, Karrion Kross, who is finally going back to his Killer Kross gimmick. Man, did I love the Killer Kross gimmick in TNA. I mean, not TNA, but Impact, of course. And, of course, when he brought it to NXT. And, of course, another shout-out to Keith Lee. He just celebrated his birthday. Keith Lee and Killer Kross now are free from the handcuffs of Vince McMahon and creative. They could finally reach their highest potential, because we all knew the writing was on the wall with them being on the main roster. There's just a certain, once you hit that ceiling, there's nothing, there's no way you could surpass that ceiling in the WWE. And we all saw the terrible gimmick with the Bear Cat, of course, the beloved Bear Cat, and the whole gladiator, sex object you want to call Karrion Kross, that they just butchered him on Monday Night Raw. He is finally free to be his old self as Killer Kross. Scarlett is going to be joining him. And hint, folks, there's going to be the return of the smoke screen and the awesome entrance that Killer Kross always has. I can't wait to see where he pops up. I heard that he's getting booked for a couple of shows now, so much love and appreciation to Killer Kross. Keith Lee, I know this is a tough time for him, but I know he's going to do well out in the indies, whether on AEW, whether on Impact, wherever he goes. I think also Mia Yim also got released, so I just hope for the best for them. We could all get upset, but we all know that the writing was on the wall with these godforsaken gimmicks that creative put on Kross and Keith Lee. But enough said on that. I really hope the best for Keith Lee. I hope the best for Killer Kross and for everybody else that got released. You always want to keep it in a positive perspective. You can't just blame yourself, just for, being in this predicament. You got to look forward. You got to move ahead, because there's always some more opportunities. And before we wrap up on this mailbag, of course, not only is November one of my favorite months of the year, but your boy DJ Kuzmo is celebrating his birthday. That's right, your boy DJ Kuzmo is celebrating his birthday this Friday. Another year, another blessing, and I'm just thankful for another year. I'm thankful for the friends that I've made on this podcast, and I'm thankful for everybody in my family and my personal life. And I hope y'all have a blessed week. AEW Full Gear is this Saturday. I'm definitely going to be checking that out. And I hope to hear from you once again. This is DJ Kuzmo signing off. Peace.
Well, DJ, first and foremost, happy birthday, brother. Happy birthday. Hope you, whatever you're doing, you enjoy yourself. Take some time, relax, and maybe throw on some good wrestling. Maybe some wrestling of old, right? The good old days, the golden era, wrestling when it was wrestling, right? When we had the Attitude Era or Ruthless Aggression or whatever. So maybe do that, or throw on some AEW. Don't do anything that'll anger you. So that said, let's get to a couple of points you made about the heel turns in general, that they didn't explain them. Yeah, they didn't explain a whole lot of anything. People just are suddenly bad guys or good guys. There's no deep storytelling. It's just, oh yeah, you're supposed to hate this person now. You're supposed to you're supposed to despise them. Well, why? Right? What's the reason? We don't get one. We very rarely get anything. We don't, the creative team or Vince just simply don't care enough to have a full-fleshed story of turning people heel. Like, people turning heel should be a big deal. But we've seen, like 6 heel turns in a month? It's crazy. And you could argue babyface turn for Sasha, and yeah, maybe you're right. But that doesn't balance the equation here. We are getting really no explanation, and it's just lazy storytelling. That's all it is. Lazy storytelling. There's no other explanation for it. But I like how you put a positive spin that people like Karrion Kross, Killer Kross, are now free from their chains, that they can just be who they want to be, hopefully in another promotion if they want to continue to pursue wrestling. Doesn't always have to be AEW. AEW can only sign so many people. They only have so much TV time. So hopefully wherever they go, if they decide to continue wrestling, that they do and are allowed to go to in a place where they can creatively be free. And AEW is certainly one of them. Impact is another. And so hopefully they do. And I like how you put a positive spin on that. Now, of course, there's a no compete clause for the 90 days. So after they're released, they have 90 days from that date. Then they can go to another promotion. I never understood that. How can you be under contract with someone that you're no longer under contract with? Does that make sense? I never understood that. And even CM Punk, when he first left WWE in 2013, whatever it was, it didn't make any 2014. He didn't make any sense that he said this with Colt Cabana. He never understood how you can have a no compete clause stating that you still cannot compete on any other promotion, even though we've terminated our contract with you 90 days prior. How does that make sense? How has nobody challenged this? It doesn't make any sense. It would be like me saying to you, the collective you, okay, if you listen to this podcast, our contract is your ability with me to listen to this show expires December 31st, New Year's Eve. However, from that date, you cannot listen to any other podcast for 90 days. Well, how does that make sense? You're telling me our agreement ends on the 31st. I only am held to the terms and conditions within that contract term. The contract term does not extend another 90 days. It either ends on the 31st or it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. Can anybody explain this to me, the no compete clause? CM Punk brought that up 7 years ago, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, how does that work? You know, I don't understand that. The no compete clause, unless it's a separate agreement that is signed outside of the contract itself, I don't understand. I do not understand that. I need somebody with some kind of lawyer background or some kind of law expert to explain this to me. I don't know. But anyway, DJ, happy birthday, brother. Hope all is well. I apologize again for somehow deleting your email or I even checked, though, my delete bin in my Gmail. It's not there. So I have no idea, but I wanted to make sure I got you in. I do apologize for the placement of your email. As a patron, you should be at the front. But anyway, I'm glad I was able to fit you in and I didn't forget about you. And because I got through and I emailed you. I'm like, no, I know I saw an email from him. It's not like him to miss a show. So I'm glad I was able to still get you in here. So anyway, all right. Now let's get on to the next voicemail.
Hey, it's Kyle from Baltimore. I got done watching SmackDown last night, and I was just thinking to myself while watching it that how not that good the show is. Besides, because people just talk about only Roman Reigns, and that's fine, but you can't. To me, he's not the only reason why SmackDown is the best show ever. You know, SmackDown has its issues with the women, particularly. You know, they do something with Sasha and Shotzi, which is fine. I think this would be a great feud, but what is Charlotte going to be doing? They haven't hyped up Survivor Series at all. They really talked about it. So it's like, it feels like this is even more unnecessary of a pay-per-view because Charlotte has nothing to do. They're doing thing with Sasha and Shotzi, which is fine, which I'm looking forward to. Roman Reigns is busy facing the New Day, which I don't think that's so weird and not what I expected for him to be facing. But besides Drew McIntyre, what else for Roman Reigns from the face that's a credible opponent? Same thing could be said, I guess, for Charlotte Flair, besides with Sasha Banks. It probably Shotzi, but the building her up is cool. But I just think SmackDown has not that good of a depth there for credible wrestlers on this show, besides the main three, with Sasha, Charlotte, and Roman Reigns. Well, that's it. Thanks for a call. That was it from that. Just give your thoughts on that, but that's it. Thanks for a call. Bye.
Hey, Kyle. So I see what you're saying. You know, like SmackDown during the draft, I think got a little bit of the shaft going from a lot of stars going from SmackDown to Raw. Now they still kept their foundational rock, which is Roman Reigns. And we all acknowledge, pun intended, that he is the best thing about that show. More often than not, he is. And the storyline that he is in is the best thing I think WWE has had in a long time. But yeah, the depth is a problem. The depth is a problem. It's been a problem for quite some time. I mean, like you said, you look at the roster. Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks are really the top two for the women, especially. The rest are what? You got B-Fab, Naomi, which she's in Naomi's more relevant than she's been in a long time. But that's good. But Xia Li, Aaliyah, Natalia. You're talking about people that, either haven't been on the main roster yet or are perennial losers. Shayna Baszler, kind of up and down. Shotzi Blackheart just got the push with Sasha. You're right. Depth is a problem. And it continues to be a problem. And it will always be a problem because you can't ever have enough depth. Enough depth does not exist. Where you feel comfortable if you lost your top four guys. You go, we're fine. We're so deep it doesn't matter. Nope. That'll never exist. It's an unattainable goal. But when it's this bad, it's a bit concerning because if you lose even one or two people, it exposes the entire roster. So thank you, Kyle. Let's keep rolling.
Hey, this is Brad in New York. Just started listening to your podcast. Really love it. Relatively new WWE fan. Used to watch it back in the day with Hulk Hogan, Iron Sheik, Andre the Giant, Macho Man those days, and recently got into it with my kids now that I'm in my 40s. A couple things that I really agree with you with and just wanted to get some thoughts on, I guess. First of all, Big E, I know you said you don't really like his stuff, like what he has going on. I totally agree with you that theme song is really uninspiring, and he really needs something better than that to come into the ring with. I think one of the things that got me into WWE recently was when I turned it on with my kids one random Friday night, maybe back in like July, and just that Roman Reigns theme song where him coming in, and it's such an incredible entrance in my opinion, and just such a dynamic thing where the music just really hits. It really makes the star more appealing and more powerful, and Big E's just that intro music has got to go. It is the worst. Another thing is Friday Night SmackDown this past week, Rick Boogs was not on. Sasha Banks was not on. I mean, I don't understand with SmackDown's weak roster after the draft. I mean, it seems very, very weak. I think that they're really hurting themselves by not having, Sasha on every episode. Rick Boogs to me seems like a guy who's really funny, really charismatic. He's big, he's strong. He's really electrifying in a lot of ways. No pun intended with the guitar. And I think they got to do something to elevate this guy. Not even kidding. I mean, this guy seems to me like someone who I could see being very big time, extraordinarily charismatic. The crowd loves him. So I wanted to get your thoughts a little bit on Rick Boogs. And, that's about it. I mean, I think that SmackDown's roster is very weak. And I think that they really hurt themselves a lot by segmenting Raw and SmackDown. They should just have one show that goes, 2 nights a week, Monday and Friday, whatever, and get rid of the separate brands because it's, basically Roman Reigns has no one to challenge him. Drew McIntyre's facing these weak guys every week. Imagine having the whole roster at your disposal and being able to put on, shows with everyone, the matchups just become so much more, dynamic and interesting. I'm wondering why, or if they've ever thought about, just desegmenting it and just having a WWE show without Raw, SmackDown, whatever it is. Thanks for the podcast.
Hey, Brad. Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad that you found us somehow, some way. I do appreciate your support. I'm glad that we were able to help you keep up to date or help you get back into wrestling. It seems as if Roman Reigns' entrance is the one that did that random July night. And you're in your 40s. I'm not too far away from you. I'm definitely closer to 40 than 30 at this point. And, as I mentioned earlier in the show, being able to bond with your children over this product is pretty cool. It's like it's America's pastime. It is. And I know that people sometimes laugh at that, but wrestling's been around longer than like a lot of other sports. Baseball is the traditional America's pastime, but this is a great way to also, if you're into such things, be able to bond with your kids and agree. So now you're going to get me on a Big E rant. I'm really trying. I'm trying really, really, really hard to not continue to just rant about Big E and everything about his character. Because if you took his character aside, this guy's really good. The problem is his character. So it's kind of like, well, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play type of analogy. But the deal with Big E's entrance music, let me just focus on that. I'm not going to talk about anything else other than his entrance music, because that's what you were speaking to. His entrance music, as I've said, is boring. It's generic. It's not inspiring. It doesn't encourage the crowd to get up and do anything, to get up and go, whoa, he's here, right? There's no glass crashing like Stone Cold. There's no strum of the guitar like with Hulk Hogan or Bret Hart. There's no energy. Maybe that's the best word I could use. There's no energy to his music. His music is soulless. It's just this generic, just kind of wrestler X music that starts off with saying, if you want to go big, then say that. Well, what the hell does that mean? What exactly? Somebody translate that for me. What exactly does, if you want to go big, then say that? Is it slang for something? If you want to fight, let me know. Is that the English translation? I don't know. Either way, that doesn't help either. Big E's music is just another item on the list of problems with Big E's character. And Roman Reigns' music, on the contrary, is the complete opposite. It gets you inspired. It makes you feel something. It's got a soul to it. Even though he's a heel, he still makes you feel something there. That music was geniusly selected. I totally agree. Yeah, Big E's music, one of many things that need to change about his character, but that needs to go right in the garbage. Okay, Rick Boogs. Yeah, I don't know where he was this week. For that matter, Sasha Banks, I don't know either. Considering that Rick Boogs was on the previous SmackDown getting attacked by Humberto Carrillo, you would think that he would come back to exact some revenge, and he didn't. Neither did Shinsuke Nakamura for that matter either. But Rick, I think, does have potential. Absolutely. I do think that Rick Boogs has potential. I just hope he stops, being a sidekick for Shinsuke if they believe he has more potential than that. I love Shinsuke, and his entrance music is iconic. But if the focus is on Rick Boogs, then you need to eventually have him go off on his own and do his own thing. And hopefully it's not a knockoff of Elias trying to be this rock star of the show, playing his guitar and singing songs every week. That has almost never worked out for anyone long term. So I'm with you. I haven't really ever sat down to think about Rick Boogs other than Pat McAfee losing his mind every time that he strums the guitar. It's like, he's, I'll keep it PG, but you know where I'm going with it. It's like he's having a blank, starts with an O. So that's what it feels like. And honestly, Rick does have energy. Rick Boogs has a hell of a lot of energy. He's got a good look. He's good in the ring, I would say. He's good to okay in the ring. But yeah, look, you may be onto something. As far as your question about one show, now, if you're a new fan, or at least a fan that has come back to the product, then you missed all of the time in which WWE did have a single show, and they went to a brand split and they went back to a single show and then they had a brand split. There have been brand splits more often than not over the last 15 years. And it does yield some benefits though. Here are the benefits of a brand split. They allow, and this is the biggest one, they allow stars to get airtime that otherwise wouldn't get airtime and a spotlight on them if there's one singular show with the same story running through both shows. That will, by definition, exclude people from the spotlight because you have one show. You have one highway. There's no, or rather one lane. There aren't two lanes of traffic, just one, which means only the stories that are on Raw get shown on SmackDown. I mean, you can't have exclusive SmackDown programs going on if you are uniting the product. They have to run with each other. And here's the other problem, or rather other benefit to that. You're able to create fantasy matchups in fans' minds. You're able to create two separate worlds where you have wrestler X on Raw, wrestler Y on SmackDown, and they're doing their own thing. They're building them up well. They are, they're being pushed to what WWE wants them to be. And the fans are thinking, what would happen if these two got together? You know, what would happen if she or he met at WrestleMania or just cross paths somehow? That's also a benefactor of a brand split. Now, the biggest downside is, again, you do run the risk of a thin roster. You do. And if you only have a certain amount of storylines running through each brand, that means that creative has to come up with more content in a shorter amount of time and more frequently before the pay-per-view. What I mean by that is, say this Roman Reigns storyline was on Raw and on SmackDown. It was a single brand. There was no brand split. Then that means creative has to come up with 3 hours of content for the same storylines that you're then going to also show on SmackDown. I mean, you are multiplying the amount of content for the same storylines that creative would have to come up with on a weekly basis. Instead of just on SmackDown, say 2 hours of content, they'd have to come up with an additional 3 hours per week because you're running those same storylines through the other brand. So I can see both sides. I'm a fan of a single brand. It's easier to follow, but I understand the challenges that come with it from WWE's perspective too. So anyway, Brad, cool to hear from you. Glad you're on board here. I hope you enjoyed the show, and hopefully we'll also talk to you next week. All right, let's continue on to the next voicemail.
So basically, your last podcast, you said that Kofi Mania, you kind of joked about it or maybe lighted it that, it really wasn't that great. It really wasn't one of the best moments in WWE history. But that's coming from you, but actually as a WWE fan, as an African American, to watch the build-up of Kofi Mania going into WrestleMania with Kofi versus Daniel Bryan and the build-up, and to see an African American actually win at WrestleMania, one of the highly touted, championships, that actually was a big moment to me. And probably I've been watching WWE, WWF, whatever, since, the 90s, the Attitude Era. And that has to be like a top 10 moment for me. I was really proud to actually see an African American win a championship. And I want to say, I don't want to say it's the best moment, no, but it's up there. It's up there for me with, I would say, like, Kurt Angle finally beating Steve Austin during the whole WCW and WWF, feud. And one of my favorite matches is Jeff Hardy and Undertaker on Monday Night Raw, where he acknowledges Jeff Hardy as a contender or a really good wrestler. These are actually big moments, and I think Kofi Mania is ranked up there. And you might downplay it, yes, because, you're a WWE, WWF fan, but as an African-American male, I was proud to see that, and it does rank up there, just to let you know, and I would love to hear your response. Thank you.
Hey, so I didn't catch the name, but I'm glad somebody responded to me. I'm glad somebody had some type of retort to my destruction of Kofi Mania. Now, this is a difficult response because I'm towing the lines of very sensitive current day issues, right? I mean, we all know what we're talking about here. And here, let me just say this. I was happy for Kofi Kingston. I understood the excitement for him. I actually even enjoyed the build to it. That was fun. And it was fun to watch Vince try to put obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in front of Kofi. Here's the biggest problem I have. It wasn't necessarily the build up to it. I think, again, it was good. The moment, fine. Him and his whole family in the ring was, again, I have nothing against that. I think it was a fine moment. Where I take exception is not him winning, not the build, not the color of his skin, but rather how he was portrayed as champion. What did he do with the championship? How did he act? I think he acted really kind of disrespectfully to the championship. And again, this is just how he was produced. I'm not saying him on a personal level, but when you come out and you're using the WWE championship as a pancake holder, where you're holding pancakes behind it, throwing them around like a fool. I don't care what the color of your skin is. You're a fool. I don't care. I know a lot of people like to, focus on race, and that's that. Look, WWE also, I understand they don't have the greatest history with race. They've done some, Vince specifically has done some things he probably shouldn't have. Like, for example, Crime Time. Remember that tag team from Brooklyn? Yeah, not good. Okay. He's done some questionable things with R-Truth. There was a massive racial undertone between Triple H and Booker T leading up to WrestleMania a decade and a half ago. There's been some things WWE has done. Absolutely. You would look back and go, that's not good, right? Like, that's a little bit on the sketchy scale, right? That's a little bit on the bad scale. But with all that said, again, I didn't have a problem with Kofi Mania until it was after he won, and then he was just beating people left and right. And after he lost the championship, which we were told was supposed to be so important to him and it meant the world, he didn't say anything about it, went about his business, smiling, laughing, as he always does, like, he's 15 years old as a sophomore in high school, and he's joking around with his buddies. Didn't care, didn't acknowledge it, didn't do anything. That's the biggest problem I had was after he won. It's more after he won, not the build to. So maybe I've been misrepresenting my argument in that the build was fine. The crowd support I had no problem with. It was a fun moment for him in the ring. Yes, I understand the history making part of it because he's a black man. I get that. But it's really the run he had after, the way that he held the championship. He could never be serious. He's always making jokes. Everything's got to be funny or an inside joke. You're still seeing that today. Nothing's changed. That's what made it so terrible for me. I don't care about the color of his skin. I really don't. Now, you look back at the history of African-American champions, there haven't been a whole lot. You went from The Rock being the first African-American WWE champion in 1998. Booker T Mark Henry, then Kofi Kingston. Of course, you had Bobby Lashley, now Big E. There's 6, right? So you had 6. If we're going to talk about black champion, African-American champions, 6 of them have reached the top. Now, that's not a lot at all, but WWE, as of late, seems to be really on a roll here, whether by design or not, of representing African-Americans as champions. I think it's great. No problem with it. I have no problem with it. What I don't want, though, is people becoming champion. And I'm not saying this is happening. But what I don't want are people becoming champion simply because of the color of their skin, and WWE thinks it would be a great marketing tool to use. In other words, I don't want WWE using other stars because of the color of their skin to say, hey, look, we're checking all the boxes. We've got all African-American champions. So take a look over here, right? That's what I don't want. I'm not saying they're doing that, but it is a little suspect given the current political climate, and they're a publicly traded company, that they have so many African-American champions at this time. I have no problem. I think it's cool that they do. And it's great to see, different races holding championships. It's great. I really enjoyed. I sang the praises of Bobby Lashley for many, many months here. Many months. I loved him as champion. Big E, not so much. But I'm not talking. Here's the thing. The problem is when you criticize anybody today, and I'm not saying you're doing this. I'm not saying I'm doing this. But as a society, the problem is when you criticize anybody today, unfortunately, the first thing they look at are like, oh, the color of the person's skin, which is really unfortunate. It's almost as if we've gone backwards, right? It's ridiculous. Instead of just, as a very famous person said, the content of their character, right? That's all I'm analyzing here is the content of one's character. Absolutely. And if Kofi winning at WrestleMania for you meant a lot as a fellow African-American, that's cool. As it should. I absolutely understand that it's something that you admired and was a cool moment. It was a moment for you. I think that was part of the intention. And I think mission accomplished, right? Like, obviously I'm not black. I think most people, not only by my logo, but by my voice, I do not sound like I am of anything other than a Caucasian ethnicity. I don't think I give that vibe. Again, my logo certainly does just kind of also give it away, but that's cool, dude. If that meant a lot to you, Kofi Mania, then great. For me, I just thought it's the character Kofi was portraying and continues to portray is the absolute worst. It's the worst. I don't care if he's black, white, green, purple, yellow, indigo. That doesn't matter. When you act like a fool, you act like a fool. I mean, I trashed Miz and Morrison for really the same type of stuff. Miz and Morrison, right? 2 white guys. Same exact argument that I've had about New Day. So, anyway, we're teetering on dangerous territory in today's very hostile political environment. But I'll just end by saying, if Kofi Mania was important to you, then my opinion shouldn't matter to anybody, like to you or anybody that looked at that moment and said, cool, like, this was an important moment for me. This meant a lot to me as a African-American or whatever race. Then that's really all that matters. But for me, it was a cool moment, but the follow-up was the worst. Build great moment at WrestleMania was good. After that is when it really fell off the tracks. Like the train went right off the tracks and off a cliff for me. So, all right. Well, let's get to the next voicemail.
Hey, man, it's Justin from Maryland. I just want to give my thoughts on what happened on the last week. So first, I wanted to say that I was very disappointed when Keith Lee and others were released. I was definitely waiting for your take on that, but I'm sure you'll have some questions from the mailbag. So
I just don't understand. Keith Lee, he had a lot of potential. We saw a lot of flashes when he went against Roman Reigns and that interaction with Brock. He beat Randy Orton. So it's just a shame, that they're just bringing up talent from NXT and then they're just letting them go. Karrion Kross, he had a lot of potential. I always felt like that they rushed him up to the main roster because his NXT championship run was not very long. I feel like that, they should have just let him stay on NXT for at least another couple of months. He could have had, a good dominant run. But it just shows, that they just don't know what to do. You got people like Elias and Jackson Riker that aren't even getting TV time among other people, and then you're releasing, people that have talent. People that could be future world champions. They were former, NXT champions, so this doesn't make sense. I wanted to touch on Bobby Lashley. For some reason, I knew that he was going to be the one to come out when Adam Pearce told Dominic that he didn't want him on the team. And it's good to see him back, definitely good to see MVP back. Hopefully Lashley, you can just forget about that whole Goldberg program. Let him, go another run. Maybe he can be a U.S. champion or something like that. And finally, I want to touch on Survivor Series. I feel like Team Raw is gonna win. It makes sense that Seth would win because he's the number one contender. Definitely would be between him and Drew McIntyre, but it's just a shame that they didn't have any qualifying matches this year. It just shows they don't really care, about Survivor Series. So definitely looking forward to, a Roman Reigns Big E. I'm sure Roman Reigns is going to win. I think Seth Rollins will probably cost him the match, or the Usos probably will. But other than that, I think my time is almost up, so I'll talk to you next week. Hey, it's Justin from Maryland again. I just wanted to touch on Kevin Owens real quick because I definitely wanted to speak on him real quick. So while Raw was going on, I felt like a lot of people knew that Kevin Owens was probably going to, retaliate for what happened last week. So I feel like that it was definitely a heel turn because just, the aggression, the way he just attacked him, he just gave him one stunner. All right, cool, I got you back for last week. But I definitely feel like, Kevin Owens turned heel. He's been kind of, misused. So I feel like him being an aggressive heel can definitely, I guess boost his status right now. So I just think that it's good that Big E, he has like 5 different opponents already lined up. I'm pretty sure he's going to face Kevin Owens again. You got Seth Rollins. You got Austin Theory because Big E slapped his phone out of his hand. So I'm sure Austin Theory is going to win a match. Then you got Otis. So it's good, that they're building Big E a little more than before. So I'm just hoping that, just give KO a world title match, have him lose. And then I don't want to see Seth face him yet. I want Big E to beat KO, beat Austin Theory, and then beat Otis. And then, hey, let Seth Rollins fight Big E at that pay-per-view during the new year. So that's it, man. I just wanted to speak on Kevin Owens real quick. It was definitely good to see Big E get his butt whooped because, I don't really like his character either. So it's always good, when someone that you don't really like their character, they get laid out. So, all right, man. Thanks. I can't wait to hear your responses, and I'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Justin, a lot there, certainly a lot there. And I'll run through this as efficiently as I can. Now, I did not give an official take on a lot of the releases. That show regarding the releases was actually done by Amanda, who did a great job, and I have yet to really speak on in depth the releases. Now that's really a whole nother episode, but I'll touch on the big ones really. Keith Lee that you spoke to. that did surprise me on the level that I thought they knew that they had something with him and that whatever issues he had going on would eventually resolve themselves. However, whatever they are, and I think there were a multitude of things. I don't think it was a singular item for Keith that made the decision for WWE to release him. There were clearly personal issues, health issues. Maybe they didn't know what to do with him creatively. I mean, they just suddenly made him a bear cat and then released him. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're going to change the name of a guy, well, why are you investing any time in a guy you're going to let go? Maybe they were hoping it would catch fire immediately, but at some point we will get the full story from Keith. I mean, he was the start and stop king from NXT. He went on a run in WWE. He was even, like you said, he beat Orton. I remember being really, really angry with WWE's decision to give Randy Orton a loss for the very first time as a hot heel last summer, and having Keith Lee, of all people, come up and beat him when that win belonged to Edge. Remember when they were feuding and they were having one of the best programs of the year? Edge was out, and Edge was out with injury, and Orton was running through people and punting people, and just he could not lose, being one of the best heels we've seen. I remember saying that this was the version of Orton that I was sad we didn't get throughout his entire career, and Edge reinvigorated him. And he then loses after many months of not being able to be even touched to Keith Lee. I didn't understand it then. I understand it even less now. And Keith Lee was the guy at that point you were like, okay, they're going to try to do something with this victory. And they didn't really do anything. You know, like you said, she starts to get a little bit of that momentum, he disappears off TV with an injury, maybe COVID. I know he's explained he had health issues in a video a few months back, but and fans are just so perplexed about Keith Lee. I think he had a lot of potential too, and he was the man in NXT for a while. They bring him up to the main roster. He flummoxed and floundered, and he's on TV and off TV. They don't know what to do with him. He's got issues. Boom, he's gone. If I was somebody at NXT, I would stay the hell away from the main roster. I would not want to aspire to be on the main roster. I really wouldn't. There are too many examples of stars that come up from NXT who are over in NXT, and then Vince gets his hands on them, and Vince McMahonifies them and fixes something that's not broke, feels like he has to change it just because he has to put his fingerprints on it, and that by default, them coming from NXT, they're not a polished performer. And he ends up screwing things up more often than not. Now, Bianca Belair is an exception. She has caught fire, and I've said that she's the best NXT call-up so far. But yeah, Keith Lee that was a head scratcher for sure. And again, I may do a separate episode on all the releases. There's rumors of more releases coming too. So, all right. Well, moving on, because you had quite a few things here. Karrion Kross. Yeah, that was another one. Why did they did seem to rush him up? I think the turning point for Karrion Kross was the mask, the terrible gladiator mask that was unnecessary. And then him losing to Jeff Hardy on his debut. That was also, looking back, a kind of a sign of things to come. Bobby Lashley, good to see him back. Yes, it is great to see him back. Absolutely agree. And seeing him destroy Dominic Mysterio was a thing of beauty. Yes. Team Raw feels like they're going to win. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And more often than not on Survivor Series, Raw does dominate SmackDown. And I think a lot of that has to do with Vince and his desire to see his firstborn child of Monday Night Raw go over the redheaded stepchild that he perceives as SmackDown. While SmackDown's the better show, I think he still favors Raw. I really, truly do. And how many times, when's the last time we saw SmackDown sweep Raw? Has it ever happened? I don't think so. But yeah, it does feel like Raw's going to win. I mean, you look at the wrestlers on each side, Raw is clearly got an advantage with star power. As far as qualifying matches go, yeah, I mean, I've kind of thrown my hands up. The way that they selected the men's and women's 5-on-5 for some Raw and SmackDown were just at the whim of Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. I mean, they literally just handpicked them. Now, Adam Pearce did say his qualifier was that they had to be a former world champion. But what does that have to do with today? You know, I mean, why didn't he pick Dolph Ziggler? You know, like Dolph Ziggler is a former world champion. He said that, well, that he's on SmackDown. But my point is that Monday Night Raw, Adam Pearce suddenly has taken an interest in, yet Adam Pearce also manages SmackDown. So why does he care about SmackDown or Raw beating SmackDown? Again, I've dove into this nonsensical logic for so long that I'm not going to continue to just destroy it. But the qualifying matches, the fact there wasn't any, and it was just basically picking favorites. You know, whoever's the teacher's pet is basically who got picked. It's ridiculous. But again, the whole premise is ridiculous, so I guess it kind of fits. KO turning heel, yeah, look, you're right. I did take it as a heel turn as well, because you said it correctly. If this was a babyface payback, then he would have just hit a stunner on Big E, and then they would have been even. But he went a little too far. The powerbomb on the apron, which, by the way, looked brutal. I mean, that looked really brutal, the powerbomb. I mean, Big E had to be feeling that the next morning. And, yeah, you're right. It is a heel turn. It's a heel turn, but I honestly don't expect Big E or Kevin Owens to have a championship run. For all accounts that we've heard, he is out of WWE at the end of January and hopefully headed to AEW, where he can actually thrive and get a consistent run and not have the restrictions of WWE that are very prominent. Okay, let's keep going through the voicemails here. We've got a few left, so let's keep going.
Rant of a crisis. That's what I got for you. I'm sorry. I guess I don't have a lot of positives except for live to the MF Morgan. Hey, that's the one good thing I have this week. Really. Thank you, WWE, for giving Liv Morgan an audition. Because that's the way I look at it. It is an audition for her to fight Becky Lynch and presumably at WWE Survivor Series. I want to see it. I want to see Liv Morgan, what she can do with a big spotlight. But besides that, I'm going to go to my rant. Hey, speaking of Survivor Series, WWE, are we stupid? Do you insult our intelligence? I understand that you have this pay-per-view that you can't book a storyline to, but come on, you waited till this last week and over social media to give us even just the 5-on-5 matches. As far as booking for SummerSlam or for Survivor Series, trash. The releases, a lot of them, trash. But there's one. Oh, dang. There is another positive that I have. There's only one professional wrestler, and I use that term loosely, that I have not cared or I do not feel bad if they ever got released. So, in my elation, happy trails, Nia Jax. Trash. Don't like her. Another rant. Eva Marie. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm the only one that thought she was trash. That's just me. But then I realized I only see the new version or new repackaged version of Eva Marie because I missed the original runs of Eva Marie and John Morrison, and I think they're both trash. Hey, what else happened? What else can I be upset about? Survivor Series. I'm just so irritated. I agree with you, Matt. I don't know anybody that is looking forward to this pay-per-view. And, Monday Night Raw, Reggie, 24/7 title. I now am with you. I do not like it. I can't stand it. I was watching the debacle, and I looked at my buddy. I go, that right there will not be on the Hulu version. I'm telling you right now. It was the most... Who is this entertaining? It's not entertaining me. It's not entertaining a lot of people I know. Besides that, hey, not everything's all rant. Big shout out to the Resident Heel. Well, sort of, I mean, he still likes the Miz, so a slight shout out. A big shout out to everybody else on Patreon. Amanda, you are killing it. Man, I hate being cut off, but that's all right. I'm pulling my Patreon card here. Hey, Amanda, killing it on the news briefs. Keep up the good work. But another rant is, hey, women's tag team division. Where is it? Where to go? Did I miss this? Did it fall apart? Did it all get split up in the draft? What is going on? And why is it so bad that you can't even put the tag team champions on a pay-per-view together? You have to split them up into a freaking 5-on-5 match. I just don't get it. Look at NXT. Matt, I implore you, check out the very first match of NXT 2.0 this week, because you saw a match 3-on-3 between two groups of girls that absolutely slayed it. And if you were a fan of Mandy Rose before, man, Mandy Rose is pulling out her inner Roman Reigns, her inner Seth Rollins, and absolutely killing it on NXT. And the match, the women's match that they had at the beginning of the show, I swear, that match itself lasted longer than the entire Queen's Crown tournament. More trash. Zelina Vega, big hopes for your Queen's run. So far, trash. Xavier Woods, man, I had big aspirations for your King. Trash. This is all trash. Can we just get past the Survivor Series pay-per-view so we can get to normalcy? Can we get to WrestleMania? Can we get to the Royal Rumble? Because I am ready for things to pick up, and pick up in a big way. Matt, have a great rest of your week. I hope to chat again with you soon. And big shout out to the whole Patreon fan. If you're not on Patreon, I said it before, $1. I will pay $1 for one person. Tweet at me at State of Crisis, KRISIS, and I will pay for your Patreon subscription so you can join the Discord chat with us, because, hey, like I said before, your friends that don't like wrestling will love you for it, because we in the Patreon group, we love wrestling. Have a great day, y'all. Amanda, shout out. Michael Ritter, man, Mimi Burris, man, everybody, Ashley, man, Zach, all of y'all. Have a great one. And, big shout out to DJ Kuzma, woo, and the casual wrestling fan, and his amazing wife. Later, y'all.
Well, that was a hell of a promo for the show. Checks in the mail, by the way. Yeah, I definitely didn't pay him to say that. But thank you so much, Crisis. And you got a lot that you brought to the table today. Let's start with this. Liv Morgan, you said it's an audition for her. Yeah, I think it is too. This is not the destination for Liv. Anybody that believes in Liv's first try that she's going to become women's champion is dreaming. It's not going to happen. I think that I wouldn't even want it to happen right now, because I don't think she's ready, and it feels like she needs to go through more struggle, more oppression by the authoritarian officials. They're increasingly becoming more heel, so I think that would be a fun little ride to go on. And I don't think it's going to be at Survivor Series, though, as Becky's facing Charlotte. So probably at TLC is probably where they're going. And I don't expect her to win there either. But Nia Jax, happy she's gone. You said Eva Marie, happy she's gone. I think the whole theme of your voicemail can be summed up in one word: trash, right? I think if I was going to sum up everything you said, that would be the word. But here's what I'll say. I agree with you about Nia Jax. I'm not sad she's gone. Eva Marie, I didn't even bat an eye. I don't care. I've never been a Nia Jax fan. Ever. I've always thought that she was never, to me, somebody that I'd want on my roster, at least in terms of what I've seen from her on social media and just the way that her attitude seemed to come across. And she was, obviously her injury record was not good, with her facing a lot of other women that she accidentally injured. That didn't help. And I just never felt like she was a good fit for the company, and I've never been a fan of her on any level. That said, on a human level, I do feel for the human being losing your job that you love, and that fact that she has a livelihood that she needs to support, right? Like, you need to make money to live. So I'm not wishing anything bad upon her, but I'm not sad to see her go at all. So there is that. The human element. So, yeah, Survivor Series, I keep talking about this over and over. It almost seems as if the format of Survivor Series is just self-serving. Almost like management feels like it's a good idea, but all the fans are like, what are you guys doing? This is not a good format and hasn't been a good format for a long time. Can we just get back to it as a normal pay-per-view and actually care about the matches with consequences of those matches and winners and losers that matter? Can we do that? And also stop blowing potential WrestleMania matches for exhibition. It doesn't make any sense. So the women's tag division, where did it go? I don't know. It went somewhere with Kofi's Jamaican accent and Lana's Russian accent. It just, it's gone. It's on the island of irrelevancy. I don't know. It's right now just poof, gone. But they have champions for a division that doesn't exist. So feel good about that. Mandy Rose is killing it on NXT. Yeah, look, I actually did catch a little bit of that. I didn't watch the whole match, but her group, it's Toxic Attraction, right? She looks like she's been reborn. Amazing how they can take a star that was floundering on the main roster and put them on NXT, and they suddenly become much better. They find themselves. They feel more relevant. Amazing. And then when they come the other way, they go from NXT to the quote-unquote main roster, they seem to lose their way. Yet when they go back to NXT, they find their way. We've seen that with Finn Balor as well. So Mandy Rose dyeing her hair, being the leader of Toxic Attraction, it's all just great to see. It's really great to see. So, Crisis, thank you for your contributions. Thanks for filling in those couple weeks where Mimi was absent, and I'm glad that you are enjoying Patreon. It's a great place to get yourself on Discord, be able to chat with other fans and all the patrons, and get everything ad-free. You don't have to deal with all the nonsense ads that pop up every 10 to 11 minutes. So, all right. I think we have one more voicemail, I believe. So let's get to that and close out the show.
Hey, Matt. This is Elia from Indiana, and I was just going to say I had a thought in KO's heel turn. I actually was thinking about this before he did the heel turn, and I think that an idea would be to have him win the Royal Rumble and then like keep everyone in the dark about whether or not he wants to challenge for the SmackDown or the Raw Championship for the main event, and then just not make his decision until the night of WrestleMania. And he could do a Seth Rollins like cash in with the the Royal Rumble victory contract. I don't know if you can do that, but if you can, and I'm sure WWE could work the rules that you could, because they're in charge and it's their own story. And I think that would be like an awesome like heel move to like just like cash in like when both of the competitors are like just completely out of gas and just like on their knees. Like he could like cash in like with a Royal Rumble victory. I think that'd be I actually thought of this before he turned heel, and I was like, WWE needs to turn him heel so he could do this. And also, I think he'd be on board with the plan enough to convince him to sign for at least another year, and he could like win the Raw or the SmackDown Championship. He could be the person to take off Roman Reigns. I don't know about a heel taking off Roman Reigns. I'd much prefer if it was the Raw Championship, but WWE Championship. But it's really up. It's up to WWE. Personally, I want Roman Reigns to carry the belt until there's actually someone legitimate enough. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. Bye.
Hey, Elia. So that's an interesting idea. At first, I'm thinking to myself, well, they can't do that because typically management would say you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. But I don't recall in the mythical WWE rulebook if there is a set time in which they have to decide. It's usually done after the second pay-per-view, after the Royal Rumble, or the first pay-per-view after the Royal Rumble, which is, I don't know, Fastlane, whatever it is now, Roadblock, I don't know, whatever that kind of middle of the road pay-per-view is, they usually decide then. But honestly, why would they? I mean, because to me, I would actually not want to see the decision made until all pay-per-views are complete. And the only pay-per-view next is WrestleMania. I think there are 2 pay-per-views between Royal Rumble and Mania, which creates a lot of confusion when a decision's made, the Monday Night Raw after or in between, and yet there's another pay-per-view to go. So they're challenging that person, but that person may not be champion. And then you're creating a match that may not happen. It gets very messy. So I think that they should allow the competitor to do it all the way up until maybe like, or at least they'd have to do it the Monday Night Raw after the final pay-per-view before WrestleMania, giving them about a 4-week build. But that said, I see your point though. That would be interesting, where they're allowed to quote unquote cash in their Royal Rumble victory for a championship match. However, I don't know how that would work, because that's not the intended use of the Royal Rumble victory. Whereas Money in the Bank, it is done at any time, anywhere. And with the Rumble, it's never been done where it's also treated as a Money in the Bank that you can just decide to cash in at any time. I see what you're saying, and that would be a very heel thing to do. That would be. But would it not be predictable? Because if the person doesn't, whoever wins, say Kevin Owens wins in your instance, he wins the Royal Rumble, and then you are anticipating the fact that, oh, well, he never gave his decision. Clearly there's something that's going to happen tonight with one of the champions. I feel like it would be a little predictable, and maybe the fans would feel like they got screwed out of a potential great match between the champion and Kevin Owens. I see what you're saying. I think it's an interesting idea to flesh out. Do I think WWE is ever going to do it? Probably not. But I've never had anyone propose that to me. It's very interesting. So cool. And Roman Reigns, look, no one's ready to take the belt off him. Nobody. Absolutely nobody's ready. So that would mean that until somebody, like you said, is ready, we keep the belt on him. And if that means it's another year, it's another year. Whoever takes the belt off him should be a huge, huge deal. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for your contributions to this longer than expected mailbag. It went much longer. I actually had to cut this in two, although with editing, you didn't know that. So I actually fell asleep during the middle of my recording last night. I mean, like literally on the keyboard. It was pretty close. So that said, guys, I do appreciate everybody contributing to the mailbag. It makes this a lot of fun to hear what your thoughts are and give you guys a voice and platform to do it. But if you want ad free and you're just tired of skipping through the ads, or you just go, oh my God, that's all he does is put ads in here, you can go ad free for essentially no money, $1 a month. I mean, what is that, right? What is that? So you can do that on Patreon or on Apple Podcasts. Both are available to you. Apple Podcasts is free for 7 days, and then it's $2.99 a month. But Patreon is $1 a month, where you can get everything ad free. So consider that, as Crisis said. And thank you to everybody for your contributions. I'll be back Sunday night for your week in review. Until then, everybody, take care. I'll talk to you next time.